So, in honor of Veterans Day, we just want to say thank you so much to all of the men and women who have served our country and are currently serving our country. We are so, so grateful for your service and for your sacrifice. And I'm actually here today with Alex and with Amy, and we just want to take a little look into the life of a man who has served in the military for almost 36 years. And his wife, Amy, who has been serving alongside you for that long, and what it looks like to be a military family. So thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you.
Can we just start by going back to the very beginning, which I think was 1988?
89.
89?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1989. And what happened that you decided to join the military?
Yeah. First, thanks for honoring us, for being here. Here I go. It's an honor to be selected to represent such a great community of veterans. Basically, I've wanted to be. I looked up to soldiers and Marines and for my entire life, practically. My father served in Korea. He was in the Signal Corps and in the 7th Infantry Division. My uncles, my dad's oldest brother and his second oldest, both served during World War II. My Uncle Jerry, who was the second oldest, he actually was part of the Philippines campaign. And it was always something that I always wondered if I could measure up. And so that sort of got in my brain, and I always thought I could do something, be significant, because I didn't feel significant as a kid. Then as I got closer to graduating high school, my dad would always tell me, what are you going to do? Or ask me what I was going to do. And I was like, don't know. Maybe I'll join the military. Maybe I'll go to college. And he looked at me and he goes, son, you ain't going to live here for free. And he goes, you're going to either go to school, you're going to get a job, or you're going to join the military. And so basically, I chickened out. I wasn't sure if I could cut it. And so I decided to go to college. And then I jokingly call it my second senior year of college. This is after I met Amy. And I came home for the weekend, and it was just one of those, if I don't do it now, I was 24 years old or going on. Actually, I was 24 at the time. And I said, I'm not getting any younger. If I don't do it now, I'll probably never do it, and then I'll never know. Then a short while later, we got married, and then two and a half weeks later, I was at Fort Dix in basic training. And then the following year, I went to my duty school, my military occupational specialty course.
So, Amy, tell me about your side of this, because it sounds like he showed up and said, hey, join the military.
He did. It was. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yep. He's like, I'm like, okay, whatever, and we were young and dumb. And so I had no clue what was in store, and reserve side, I kind of knew it was a weekend every month, 2 weeks in the summer. And I'm thinking, okay, that's not so bad. So, yeah. And that's what it was for a long time.
What I didn't say initially was, as I was finishing my AIT in August of 1990, that's when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And the Sunday of drill, we're coming down the back stairs of the drill center, and there's Command Sergeant Major Guza standing there and asking soldiers if they want to learn a new MOS. He asked if I would be interested, and I said, well, when do you need to know? And he basically said, now, because you leave Tuesday. And I'm like, I just moved my new wife and baby to Northwest Ohio. I can't tell you that now. And so I basically was like, and he goes, well, I need to know now. So I went down and continued on. Well, as we had Desert Shield, and then eventually that turned into Desert Storm. Well, in Desert Storm, anybody who remembers, the 14th quartermaster was hit with the Scud. And I bore that guilt for years because I saw myself as chickening out. And she'd get mad at me because, not like mad, but she'd get frustrated because I'd always be like, I let them down. I should have went. And so when the planes hit the tower, we were getting ready for our first morning break, and one of the guys that I worked with, I was pulling up in my reach truck. He's like, a plane just hit the World Trade Center? And we're thinking, what? World Trade Center? Somebody must have fallen asleep. And we're in there in the break room, and we're watching the clouds of smoke. And then as soon as we saw that second plane hit, we knew it wasn't an accident. And I told her, I said, I'm not missing this one.
And that's when it got serious, very serious.
So talk to me a little bit about that. When was your first deployment?
Well, it was 2003 was my first deployment. That was basically right after going for the invasion of Iraq. And then January, I got a call as I was sitting at my desk, and Lieutenant Ledbetter, who was our S1, which is the personnel HR section of the unit, he called and said, we need another lieutenant. Are you willing to go? And I was doing cartwheels. In my heart, I was just, I was like, yes, Well, I come home that night, and I looked at her, and I said, honey, I got a call today, and I'm going. And she's like, no. She's like, no, you told me you weren't going. And I said, well, I said, things changed. And
so our son AJ had just turned 3. And then he comes. We have 4
kids, yeah.
3 girls and a boy. And AJ had just turned 3, and I remember him coming home with a folder, and I'm like, well, this is odd, but, And then that's when he told me, and I told him, I said, you're going to make me cry. I said, stop, this is not funny. And he goes, no. He said, I got transferred today. So then I started bawling. Well, our oldest, Rebecca, she was on the other side. He didn't realize she was sitting there. She started bawling. So then it's just a matter of like, okay, it's informing people. It's trying to get him ready. Initially, we thought that we had a week. And I remember him coming home, I think it was like the second day he'd gone, and he's just like, the commander needs somebody else with clearances to go with him with the advanced party. And I looked at him, and I said, when do you leave? And then he was like, Sunday morning. And so this was like, I think, Friday. And this is pre-smartphone. This is, I had my little Nextel at the time. But there was no texting. There was no, Skype by the time. We'd hear rumors of stuff through our family readiness group. And every time they said an advanced party, I'm like, well, I know I know where he is. He's always advanced party. But being back home with 4 kids, it was difficult. AJ at the time, the way a little 3-year-old took it, he literally ground his teeth, his front teeth. We had his front teeth pulled because of the stress. I could hear him at night. And it's like trying to figure out how to deal with that.
What do you feel like it was your greatest fear when he was gone?
When he left, I can laugh about it now. I couldn't look at his clothes. I couldn't look at any of his stuff, and I literally
I was dead.
That was he's going to war. He's not coming home. I'm going to have to do this all by myself. So I took all of his clothes, and they went to the back of the closet. They went in totes because I'm like, I can't look at them.
It was interesting because she didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't do anything. And when I did have the chance to call or to talk to my family, my dad was convinced I was in a firefight every night. And the post I was on, we got some mortars, everyone, a few, but everything that was happening was in the actual villages and stuff like that, not where we were. But it was different. You see the movies, the soldiers celebrating Christmas and Easter and things like that, and yeah, you're jovial, you're joking and doing stuff, but it's just not the same. And then she had put together some things for me. She had put together a calendar that had all the different photos intermingled on it. So when I flipped the new month, it would have new photos. So they were always with me. But as far as being away from the family, that it's tough. But the 3 times that I went, that first time, like I said, that was probably the toughest because of the fact that mail was slow. The only things that were moving were, we call them beans and bullets, food, water, and the provisions of war. Mail was the last thing that they were pushing. So it took a while for that first package, first mail to start coming through. It was hard, but I know it was harder for them back here just because I knew where I was. Mm-hmm. They didn't.
Right.
And I knew where they were.
Yeah. So 3 deployments. Yeah. Did it get easier for you?
No. The difference was, we went, 12 years between the first deployment to the second. And, of course, things had changed since then. It wasn't a 4-day notice. We now had probably about 9 months to a year's notice, which I said I would take the 4-day over it. Just rip the Band-Aid off, get it done. Because then you're trying, there's a lot of back and forth. They're having to go to different trainings, different meetings, different, and so he was constantly, kind of like in and out. And we could Skype more this time. Technology had caught up. So we could Skype and talk via that. Or I know one time he's like, well, the internet's not going to be working in my room. Well, why is it not going to be working? He says, it's just not going to be working for about a week. So he would call me, but he just wasn't in his room because the internet wasn't working in his room. And I'd see him, it'd be like at a little cafe or something like that. Turns out the day he got home, he said, yeah, remember when my internet wasn't working? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I was in Iraq. And I'm like, okay, all right. So
nothing happened.
So this next time that he left, because then we went, that was 2017, he got home. I don't know which one was harder because they were each hard and they're in different ways. This last time he left January 2nd, but by this time all 3 girls are out, they're married. It's just, our son's home, which, boys, they're so talkative. But it was just, I missed him terribly. He would call me when he'd get up in the morning, and then he'd call me every evening when it was time for bed. So I had those times. But I would always tell him, I said, I'm going to pray the same thing I prayed over there. And this last time, he said, stop doing that. He's like, don't do that. And I'm like, no. I said, my thing was I did not want him to come back changed. I knew there was going to be changes just because, growth periods, in general. But we'd seen too many, PTSD, any of that. And I'm like, I said, what, too late? I've already prayed it, and God loves me more. So That was always he's like, that's not fair. And I said, look, I don't know how I'm sure I would have been able to handle it somehow. But it was, if we could avoid it, that was my big thing, is just, I didn't want him to come back so changed.
Well, I mean, it sounds like your faith played a role.
It did. I mean, it took a while. I have to say it was a little easier, and not to make it sound like, oh, I was fine the whole. No, I especially even this last time, COVID. We're coming out of COVID. There's all that stuff that was going on, and I know I was depressed. I mean, it was just hard. I was baking, and I remember I was working on an order, and I told him, we're talking, and I said, I hate this, and he's like, why? And I said, I hate it. And it was hard, Now we would watch Victory together. He would, we'd text while we're watching, so we could at least have that connection on that way. But it was difficult. I don't know how people do it without the Lord, because it can be difficult even with Him. But I don't know how they do it, because it really did. You really lean on that, and it's just kind of the whole, please keep him safe, please bring him home, and it's all those. And you're watching. That was another thing I could not watch soldiers coming home. I'm like, I'm so happy for them, but I can't celebrate with you right now. Or whenever there was ones that were killed. Again, not that anybody can watch it, but it just made it that much harder. And I'm like, I can't even fathom, because it's conversations that you have to have, because now you're here, he's over there. It could happen. He's going to places where they don't like us. So, and coming to terms with, okay, if it does, because you do have to somewhat prepare yourself for that. It's a lot of mental anguish that can happen.
But the biggest thing is, we're here to honor the veterans that served, and like I told her, I said, I don't want it to be about me, because I'm doing this because I wanted to do it. We owe those who have gone before us, so much, and that how can we? They gave us this country, going back to the Minutemen, in Concord and Lexington, and they believed so much in the dream, and in their cause, that farmers took up arms, basically, and gave their lives so that we could establish this country. I remember when I came back from my first deployment, she had got me hooked up with this kindergarten teacher, I think, or first grade, or one of the grade schools at Rowan.
Yeah.
And they wanted to talk to a recently deployed vet and soldier. I think she called me a hero. I'm no hero. And I told her that, and I told the kids that. I said, no, the ones that didn't come back, the ones that, gave up their everything, their tomorrows for our today, they're the heroes. And that's one of your questions, was, why I continue to do it. And I'd continue to do it. Don't get me wrong. It's like any other job. You get tired of it sometimes. I don't like PT tests. I hate running. But when it comes December, I've asked myself, and I've asked people, what's it like? Because I've been doing it for so long. And they say, oh, you won't miss it. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure, because every time something happens on the TV, I'm going to be thinking, and but those are the ones that I think we need to honor.
Well, I see a lot of humility in you and so many other people who are serving our country right now, because I believe that the men and women who died for our country are certainly heroes, but every time that you were serving our country or deployed, you were willing to give up your tomorrows. And that's a hero. It really is.
Thanks, but it was just a job.
And we're grateful that you came back home, and praying for all the men and women that they'll come back home safely. But thank you for serving and being willing to do that. And Amy, same for you. From a person who doesn't have a husband who's in the military and all of that, just hearing your story, there's so much sacrifice there that you guys were willing to give up. Just your relationship, your kids, time. You've been married how many years?
35.
35 years.
Yeah, as long as I've been in.
And many years apart, or not around each other. So thank you for doing that. Seriously.